back to MSTV. I'm Neha Chauhan, and you are watching the talk show Rubaroo. And on our episode, we are here with the Professor of Accounting and Finance of Charles Darwin University of Australia. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
So, sir, my very first question to is how was your journey? Has been
I was born and brought up in India. I was born in Bharatpur and had my schooling from Sainik School, Chittorgarh. After that, I completed Bachelor of Science and then MBA in Finance from Utkal University. I worked in India for about 10 years in different countries in finance as manager. My last job was with State Fashion in Australia, in India, and I lived in Noida in Sector 25. And one fine afternoon, I was sitting at my desk and feeling bored, which was the decision that I made to resign from my job and then went to Australia to pursue my Master of Commerce in Accounting and Finance, focusing on some international finance. While I was finishing off my degree, I was having a discussion with one of the professors, and he said, "That's a very good subject for a doctoral thesis." And unbeknown to me, I ended up starting my PhD with that professor. I didn't finish with the professor, but I started and then completed my degree in or doctorate in international finance, more specifically on emerging market investments. And while doing that, I started teaching at the university and over time ended up with Charles Darwin University 6 months ago as associate professor there in accounting and finance. So that's a sort of a long and short of my journey into academia. My first flavor of my career wasn't academia. I was working as manager, pursued that in Australia as well, but finally that was the calling and I started teaching.
so. Is there any specific inspiration to choose this specific field?
Uh, I'm quite excited by international finance and more importantly, the process of globalization over time that is people think of globalization from 90s in India or 80s in other emerging markets, but I see the most global period of the world as during 1700 and 1600s when we had the East India Company, Dutch India Company, Portuguese trading companies. So that was the extreme form of globalization at the time. And if we think about it, until 1966, I think, if I remember correctly, the League of Nations' primary agenda was to remove the passport. So, which, if you think about from a perspective of globalization, it means you can travel around the world free without the visa or the passport. But now the passport is common. So, globalization is what actually intrigues me, excites me, and I go on. The other aspect within the financial society is the challenge of status quo. So I visit number of schools while I'm in India and talk to teachers, talk to students. And one of my favorite questions with the teachers is, when you start your school year, do you think of any particular values of life that you are going to impart to your children during this year? And over last 15 years, I've been asking this question. Every time I get an answer, no. We are focusing on the curriculum. I said, but your students do imbibe some values from you, rightly or wrongly, or they misunderstand your values. So why don't you articulate and teach those values to your children? It's too hard. And the other, my favorite question is if you have sons and daughters in your family, your son goes out in the evening, that's perfectly okay. When your daughter goes out in the evening, your first question is, what time will you come back? And your next statement is, come back before sunset. So, what is the implicit, implied message you are giving to the new generation, your children, your sons and daughter? For son, the message is very, very convoluted, which is any girl who is outside the house after the sunset is not a good girl. And that is the most dangerous message you are giving your children. So this has nothing to do with finance, economics, or anything else, but these are things that I try to challenge over my day-to-day life.
Okay, so as you are a professor, and what type of problems and challenges you have faced while teaching in Australia? Because you have taught in India also, so it was a major turn to study in the Australia, teaching in the Australia. So what type of challenges you have faced?
One of the challenges, or most important challenge that I faced in the beginning, was the accent. And then I thought about this issue of accent, and I actually went to the extent of understanding what does accent actually mean. And when somebody says you have an Indian accent, that is true statement on surface, but what it means actually under the surface is your accent is different to my accent. It doesn't mean Indian accent, it means yours is different to mine. And in the beginning, I tried to actually understand different accents and tried to minimize my accent to match with the Australian accent. But then I learned another important aspect of the language, which is you need to let the language flow naturally. If you try to uh, sort of put in different accents or manage your accent, then you are spending too much time in trying to speak what you are speaking, thereby losing your own train of thought, what you wanted to say. So that then I took a step back, and now when I teach, I don't really think about my accent. I have an Indian accent. I say I have an Indian accent. If you have a problem, please try to understand that. Tune into my accent. It will take you 5 minutes, and after that, it will be fine and simple.
Okay, so my next question to you is, how the finance is impacting our economies?
There was a term that was used a few years ago, that was the financialization of commodities. So finance actually makes everything tradable. So if you think about in today's scenario, or if you go back about 30 years ago when we had the agriculture market where you took the grains to the auction pit and you sold your grains, everything was in physical. But there was the underlying unofficial market in the forward, which was you sell in the forward or you buy in the forward. But that was purely unofficial market. Over the last 20 years, we have an official market in the forward for almost every commodities. And I can name certain commodities that you could never think of there would be a forward contract on. For example, eggs. For example, pork. Sugar is, everyone knows sugar, cotton, wheat, rice, but you would have never heard of the forward contracts on eggs, soybeans, soybean shell, soya oil, and everything that you can think of nowadays is being sold and bought in forward market. Now, there is a good and bad aspect of it. The good aspect of it is the farmers, agriculture people, they can actually sell their commodities in advance to understand how much they are going to get. So, no matter what the price of wheat is 6 months later, when they sow their wheat, they can sell their wheat for a 6 month delivery. Bad aspect of that is the market has become a global market now. So the price of onion, when it increases in Australia, will directly influence the price of onion in India as well. And rightly or wrongly, the public screams on their head, saying that the government should control the price of the onions and bring it down for a temporary purpose. Government can do that, but when government does that, it creates an underlying unofficial market in the onions where people will buy onion and sell in the forward market, or sell in the forward market and buy in the physical market, so thereby storing those onions for a longer period of time to sell it in future. So the artificial controls of the market that we aim to put in, they are not going to work in a globalized world. It can put in a stopgap, it can put in stop the triggers, but in the longer term, the prices will be the free market prices.
Okay, so after the pandemic, do you see any changes in the finance and the account industry?
Well, one important change in the finance industry during the pandemic, it was 100% work from home. So finance industry, especially in Australia, is struggling and fighting hard to bring the people back into offices. Some people argue, like if I talk about my son, who is a recent graduate and works in the finance industry, he almost finished his degree without going to school. So he didn't go to university, studied from home. He started his career work from home, and he never went to work for the first 1 year of his work. He was sent his computer at home. He was set up his computer at home. Everything was done from home. So that has a huge challenge for whole of the industry in terms of working together. So the building of teams is a different game now that used to be earlier. Everything is done online. Apart from that, the finance industry is also being hit by this short-term influence of things. Pandemic, one of the biggest things that irritates me or annoys me from the pandemic was expected to bring people together,
Yes.
bring the values of relationships much more strongly. But what it has done is it has made people realize that there is a very high risk in life all times. So life can go away, or the life we live today can go away in a flash of a second any day. So I want to enjoy my life. I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to care what my parents, what my partner, what my children think. So that has made people a little bit more self absorbed or self centered rather than extending out and holding on to each other, which they thought they will during the pandemic when we were restricted to our own homes. So that has created a different finance industry, a different economy all around the world. And we have seen the results of all the delivery platforms. You've seen all the results of this within day-to-day life as well.
Okay, so as we talking about finance, so my next question is related to the AI. I mean, what's your take on the artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence is something which is a necessary evil and that will stay and grow. People are fearful of artificial intelligence. People were fearful of Google when Google came in, or any of the search engine. If we think about the older search engine like Yahoo, or before that the Excite.com and those search engines, people were very fearful. And more importantly, academe was very fearful of Google at the time because we were thinking, or the academics, I wasn't in academia at the time, academics were thinking that it will take away my job because you can find everything on Google. But nothing of that sort happened. Academic industry is still the same as it was 50 years ago. Now comes in AI. AI is sort of taken Google 100 steps forward. In Google, you had to think of phrases that you will search for to get the answer that you wanted or yet you needed. AI is more conversational. So if I think about it from my 2 days ago experience, I was presenting at a conference in Delhi University, and they gave me the topic of presentation a day before the presentation. So think of myself as I'm standing in front of a group of academics coming from all over the world, and a group of academics in India, and I'm expected to speak for 20 minutes, the topic for which is given the night before the presentation. So I sit down there, think, okay, this is what I want to say, but now I need to write a 20-minute story about this. And can I write, edit, correct, flow, do all of those things within that uh, couple of hours of the night that I have to prepare for it? So I sit down, I chalk out my plan, what I would do. I take some help from the AI to write a story. Then I don't like it. I said, remove this, add this. I find some statistics, add the statistics into the story, get the final outcome, re-edit that so as to make it my own in my own language. So I could do that within the 4 hour time frame that I had at the time. Whereas if I had to write it from scratch, manually everything, about 20 minute speech may have taken me whole day to write. So it allows you to do things more efficiently. It, it's something which helps you. It's not a thing that you need to be fearful of.
So, as we talk about teaching methods, so do you find any differences between the Australian and Indian teaching methods?
Australia has less pastoral care. What when I use the word pastoral care, what I mean is in common language what people call hand holding, and in my blunt words, I call it spoon feeding. So Australia has got less of spoon feeding, pastoral care, or hand holding. India has more of spoon feeding, pastoral care, hand holding. So when students graduate from school or university and walk into workforce, uh, they are thinking, what now? Who's going to tell me how to do it? I was talking to somebody just a few minutes ago when I was going for my radio interview, and I said one of the things which is missing very, very badly in Indian context is the bridge between the profession or the industry and the academy. So we finish the bachelor's degree, we go into industry, and what is the implications or the application of this theoretical knowledge into the practical side that is not being trained for. So we expect an engineer to graduate with a Bachelor of Engineering degree, stand on a canal bank and build a canal or build a road or a bridge. So, and this is because, or my take on this is the reason I think about is because industry doesn't want to spend time and effort into training someone. So they want someone to work from day one. Whereas academe is not trained for practical. Academe is not trained for, except for certain professions like medicine, nursing,
Yes.
couple of those things, where they're trained for doing that. They have hospitals to do the internship. Other professions and industries are not trained for doing that. So they do a haphazard way of doing it. They try to incorporate the form filling in accounting or as software into finance that will help them do things, but that's not working in my view. So we need to give more responsibility onto our professional industry organizations to provide 1 year or 2 year, depending on the individual professions and industries, a training program that bridges this gap. So whether it is funded by the industry or it is funded by the public sector or funded by someone else, I don't know.
Okay, so sir, what type of new trends are we following in the finance and accounting industry right now?
Right now, everyone is running after something which is I am scared of, and that is the cryptocurrency.
Yes.
So everyone is running after cryptocurrency, and I sometimes jokingly say that anyone who advises you to invest in cryptocurrency run so far away from that person that that person has no hope of catching you ever again in their life. That's a bit of an exaggeration in the joke. What I'm trying to say is cryptocurrency is some sort of a mind boggling, complex thing. One, it is something which has no cash flow of its own. The only value of a cryptocurrency that we argue is the rarity of the currency itself or the limited supply of the currency itself. That provides the value to the cryptocurrency. But the problem with that is once the love affair with the currency dies down, then this will sort of go away or fall like a uh, there is no tomorrow. Having said that, cryptocurrency also has another aspect, which is the blockchain technology, smart contracts, issuance of digital currencies. Central banks are using cryptocurrency or the blockchain to issue currencies. So, Reserve Bank of India has announced that. Reserve Bank of Australia announced that a few years ago, and Central Bank of China is already issuing its own digital currencies. So, if there is a business model behind that so called crypto, then it's a good investment. If there is no business model behind that crypto and it's purely a mining limited supply currency token, whatever we call it, then stay away from it. That's my take on it. But at the same time, the other aspect of investment literature that is untouched about is the advice part of it, or who do you go and talk to? Typically, most people, including Australia, they talk to someone who is their friend, who is knowledgeable, not necessarily in finance, but knowledgeable, who is a lawyer, who is a doctor, an engineer, some other professionals, and they'll talk to them about investing, and they'll say, I invested in such and such crypto, or some shares, or some mutual funds. And based on that advice, they invest. My strongest recommendation to everyone is you need to go to a finance expert, investments expert to seek advice on finance rather than going to a doctor to seek advice on finance and going to a finance expert when you are sick to get medication. So don't do that.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful session about the finance and the accounting. That was very helpful. You are watching MSTV on the talk show Rubaroo.